G'day, ZiggyD here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the state of the Demon Hunter in patch 2.0.1. So post patch 2.0 Demon Hunter, I had a fair bit of a chance to play around with Demon Hunter on both the Reaper of Souls beta and now on patch 2.0.1 in the core live servers, and I've had a chance to sort of like assess the differences between the two. And overall, I feel like Demon Hunter's in a really good place. So many improvements to the class. I think it really hits its stride in Reaper of Souls, but still in patch 2.0.1, I think it's in a pretty good state, and certainly a lot more fun to play, and also a lot more effective. So let's just kind of do this pretty casual. I'll take you guys through just a run of Cemetery Forsaken for now, and we'll slay some mobs using a current setup I've just been working on of a kind of like a fast Grenadier spec. I might just mute to turn the volume down just a little bit for this. There we go, guys. So I've been working on this idea of like a fast, bursty Demon Hunter spec. A lot of the classes in 2.0.1 and in Reaper of Souls have gone through kind of like this shift to make them more in line with their theming. What is that wall over there? That's the weirdest wall I've ever seen. But Demon Hunter, so we have things like the Wizard going to be more of a master of the elements. That's really weird walling. Oh, there's two waller mobs there. So the Wizard went to be this like master of the elements, and the Demon Hunter was changed to be more in line of its core idea of being this like fast-moving but high firepower character. It's all about the explosives, the rockets, the crossbow bolts impaling things. You know, all of being about that massive firepower. Man, Wallers are possibly the worst thing for any class, and Demon Hunter especially is no different there. But we should still be able to get these guys down pretty well there. It's a bit hard to concentrate when we're constantly getting walled. So Demon Hunter was, changed to be more in line with that concept of being a highly mobile and firepower-based class. She's always been a bit like that, but some aspects of the class have been a bit lackluster, and especially in the meta game that was vanilla Diablo 3, where you were facing hordes of massive quantities of mobs in very high mob dense zones. The Demon Hunter just didn't do that well. The Demon Hunter has always had pretty good burst damage, but just really didn't have much sustained damage. There's nothing like, the constant ticking damage of a Whirlwind Barbarian, or the constant massive AoE of an Archon. So it just didn't quite work out in the metagame previously. But now, Demon Hunter itself has had a lot of different class changes, and the game itself has undergone a lot of different changes, which makes the Demon Hunter both a better class in general, and a better class within the game. So, let's talk a bit about the game changes that affect the Demon Hunter. Well, it affects everything, but how they affect the Demon Hunter. So, mob density in general has been reduced. I kind of talked about this in my previous video, with the concept of making fewer, harder, and more rewarding mobs. So, mobs give more XP, they drop better loot, and there's fewer of them, and you instead have to focus about how you engage them and how you deal with them. That means things like single target attacks or sort of small but very powerful AoE skills are much more effective now. And that's really what the Demon Hunter excels at, especially now after a lot of the changes. A lot of this stuff is about smaller but very potent AoE skills. Take like my example here of Cluster Arrow. This is a skill I'm working on in this current setup, in this current sort of this build here that I've been playing with. The Cluster Arrow is very powerful, 525 weapon damage as fire per grenade that drops. However, its AoE is kind of small. So let's like fire that. You see like the straight line effect. It does a lot of damage. When it crits, you'll see me crit for like 1 million there. Over 1 million in some cases. 1.1 million damage there. And my sheet DPS is only 187k. So you can see the damage effectiveness is pretty insane really. And but however, small AoE. So in the previous game, in the previous iteration of the game, before patch 2.0, we were fighting very extremely mob-dense zones. The screens were full of stuff. Instead of being like a pack that's kind of clustered like this now, we were facing packs that were kind of just like filling this entire area. And this just wasn't an efficient way to play using something like this. It was only really ever used against elites. However, now in this sort of setup, you notice the pack size in general is a bit smaller, but each one of these guys are rewarding a ton of XP. You'll actually probably notice my Paragon bar move quite a bit during this, despite being Paragon level 78. Still getting a lot of Paragon XP here. And the way things are clustered up now, there's fewer mobs, but dealing that burst damage is a really viable option. So, I'm using something like a very fast-moving spec. I'm using things like Tactical Advantage to get around really quickly, and I'm using like increased effectiveness grenades. I've even sort of played around with different types of grenades. I'm using Grenade Cache at the moment to sort of give myself just enough AoE sort of really nail the pack size. And what I do is I use my mobility to sort of group things up a little bit, group them up in a bit of a straight line, and then use my grenades to take them down like that. And man, is it a fun way to play? And the Demon Hunter actually feels effective for once. It's pretty crazy. So I've been playing in a lot of different zones. I tend to prefer Act 1. It's one of my favorite acts in Diablo 3 in general. But I've played in a lot of different zones in a lot of the different acts now, and it's kind of, I'm noticing similar themes all around. There are places where the build, or the way I've been playing Demon Hunter since the patch, have been less effective, like in places like CRYPT 2, where you're really sort of closed off, narrow passageways, and things are a little bit more dense in there compared to like the size of the room, so it's a bit harder to maneuver around and get your nice sort of lining up of the mobs. So it doesn't excel in there. However, the Demon Hunter is in such a place now where not only can you play highly mobile bursty specs like this Grenadier spec I've been working on here, which I will go over this because I know you guys might be curious about it as well. You can also play things like, standstill Grenadiers, so less mobile specs, more oriented towards tighter zones like keep depths. And there's a lot of other turrets and trapper builds and things like that are going on. There's basically, I've had no problems with putting together different specs that I've always kind of wanted to try now and have them feel effective in some of the zones in the game. And now because of the mob density changes, with most mob density being reduced overall but evened out across all zones, so we'll go and jump in one of these zones now, which these ones work out pretty nice. Probably should have grabbed that fleeting shrine, but oh well. And I've had no problem with making specs and then taking a few minutes to find an appropriate zone, thinking about what would be the best zones to farm for it, and still feeling like I'm having good XP efficiency. So I'm pretty stoked, really. I'm pretty stoked. So let's get into some of the more specific changes. One thing you'll notice is I'm using the wolf. I've actually been forgetting to use it in this run because I've been focusing on chatting, but here we go. We can use it here against this goblin just now, and you should be able to, whoa, taking a bit of damage there from the lightning. Oh, we might have to focus on the elite. That poison enchanted is pretty nasty. You'll notice the new affixes in the game, the lightning storms, the frozen pulse, the orbiter, and the poison enchanters. They're all pretty potent. Is this goblin gone? I think the goblin's gone, unfortunately. We'll go activate this quest. Missed the goblin. But things like the pets, for example, are an example of something, a massive leap forwards in terms of the Demon Hunter. Pets on the Demon Hunter were pretty damn boring before. Pretty much everyone used, some people used boars in very specific sort of tanky specs, especially if you're doing something like fighting an Uber. But for the most part, everyone used bat. You just got the hatred, and that's about it. And the pets didn't really do anything, they were just a passive buff. You just summoned them, and that was the only time you used the skill at the start of each game. And, pretty boring overall. However, pets are one example of where a huge overhaul has been made, and it's a good, sort of example of how the Demon Hunter has been changed in general. So now pets have both a passive and an active effect. So the wolf, for example, previously a pretty useless pet in general, now does pretty decent damage, 150 in a cleaving effect. So he does, a decent amount of damage himself. 150 weapon damage isn't bad. That's not far off what some of our main attacks are like. And then he has an active effect. Your wolf howls giving you 30% increased damage for 10 seconds. That's massive. It's such a big boost in damage effectiveness. So let's actually see if I can kind of show this in effect here. Now you saw me doing 1.1 million crits against mobs before. Let's you see the wolf actually killing things there himself pretty nicely. Let's leap forwards a bit, find a bit more of a bigger pack maybe, and I'll use the, here we go. We'll use the wolf proc against these guys, and hopefully we can get some crits there. Seeing 1.2 million crits there. These guys are hitting pretty hard. Let's fire off a few more. There we go, some nice big crits. So the 30% increased damage effectiveness for 10 seconds is great for bursting down elite packs and things like that. So, upping that damage is pretty significant. 30% is a pretty big damage increase. So now we can look at the wolf and think, okay, this is a nice constant damage thing. He's doing pretty nice damage in a little AoE in front of him, so he actually adds something to our character and to our farming. But most importantly, he also tanks as well, now that he has a life bar. But having him a secondary effective, allowing you to get more burst damage when you need it, against things like elites and things like that. So if we find an elite pack, it'll be something they'll use. Here we go, there's one here, and it comes off cooldown pretty quickly, I find. So what I'll do is I'll stun this mob here, and I'll use that to try and burst that guy down really quickly. There we go, already got him down to about half life. Be able to finish him off, just sort of kite back a little bit, taking advantage of positioning, and what I talked about in the last one, where positioning and tactics are very important now in Reaper of Souls, if you want to play well and get the most out of your class, and maximising sort of our damage potential there. Really nice stuff. But we'll take a look at some of the other pets. because there's quite a few. You can see kind of how they kind of just suit different builds now. Like different builds will want to use different pets instead of everyone just using either the bat or nothing. So for another example is the Spider Companion, has a slowing one. Great in PvP, but also very helpful in things like hardcore if you don't have a slowing effect, or if you're using something like Color Weak and you don't want to use one of the other skills to give yourself a slowing effect. You can use that against elites and things like that. Spider's more of an interesting one now. Bat Companion is even made more interesting as well. In addition to the base hatred regen, the bat can also instantly restore your hatred. So this actually works pretty well with this spec, because what I do is if we run forwards, that little pool, by the way, was a pool of reflection, which gives an XP bonus. I use all my hatred out, then I sort of pop the bat, and essentially get about 2 more cluster arrows out. So I haven't decided which one is more effective with this setup just yet. I'm leaning towards the bat at the moment, but the wolf's very good as well. I like the base damage of the wolf, because the bat itself only does 60% weapon damage. But once that goes off cooldown, I'll be able to actually show you guys some of the other pet changes and things like that, because pretty rad in general. Okay, so if we go on over here, we'll grab this fleeting shrine and continue on our run here into the defiled crypts. I love these zones. They're just so peaceful. Nothing like smashing down some zombies and skeletons. Alright, let's kill these things. So another example then is the boar. The boar has, always been like a defensive oriented one. The boar is even more important now because of regen's becoming very important with the removal of lifesteal. Means if you're going to make a higher mitigation spec, you want to use a boar. Like the regen from the boar and plus the increase in resistances and things like that make the boar a really, really nice pet to have. So let's chuck it back over in here. Boar Companion increases your regen by 826 and resistance to damage types by 20%. So pretty big increase there. The Boar Companion now has the active effect of charging towards you, then taunting all enemies for 5 seconds. So if you're in danger, you pop the boar, and then the boar, the boar saves you more so than just the passive effect. Far more interesting again. And then finally, the Ferret Companion, it's always been a bit of a funny one, but now instantly picks up health globes and got within 60 yards. So this actually acts as like an instant heal, because if there's a few health globes within you, 60 yards is pretty big, most of the screen. So the Ferret acts as an instant heal, and if you have something like a legendary that causes more globes to drop, then you're going to be able to use the Ferret. Or if you're playing with a Witch Doctor, then you can grab all the health globes for them. Pretty cool stuff, but not quite as lame as it once was. A little bit cooler now, a little bit cooler. But, that's the other thing, I didn't actually notice that. Increases your movement speed by 10%, so you can actually get move speed from the Ferret as well, if you want to go for a faster moving spec. So, pretty cool stuff in general. A lot of the skills in general, like multi-shot and stuff that were a little bit lackluster in terms of damage, have had that damage increased, and we've also seen a lot of elemental changes in terms of the skills. So, we've got lightning damage here, we've got fire damage, we've got lightning, poison, physical, fire. Got a good mixture of different elements across the different skills, depending on what you want to go for. And this means you can actually stack like percentage elemental increases in addition to skill increases on your actual gear. So gearing the Demon Hunter becomes more interesting. Now the final thing I want to talk about, while we just sort of move forwards here, is how the removal of Life Leech has affected the Demon Hunter. Previously, the best way to farm higher difficulty levels on the Demon Hunter was to just stack Life Leech and then just get enough damage to not get one shot, and use something like Rapid Fire Bombardment to whoa, that's a bit scary, to basically just life leech your way to victory. And it was effective, and it was kind of fun for the first hour or so, but it was a boring way to play overall. More Wall is another nasty mob pack here. It's actually a rare Ender blue pack in there. Getting pretty good elite density, it seems. But it was a boring way to play. So now, with the removal of lifesteal, we have 2 options, and Demon Hunter takes advantage of both of those options really well. With skills like Boar, and with skills like Perfectionist, increasing your life and armor and resist, we have a class that's able to be very tanky and focus on regen and life gain on hit very effectively. We can use fast attacking skills and then use a lot of extra mitigation to keep ourselves very tanky. And in Reaper of Souls, that was pretty much what I was playing actually. I was playing very tanky, high mitigation, high regen, life gain on hit specs, and just kind of like being extremely tanky. You'd still have to sort of use positioning a little bit, but you were able to heal yourself over time with things like grenades or any other fast proccing things. I was even using Chains of Torment in there for a while as a really nice, strong extra damage and life gain on hit effect. And it worked, you know, it worked really well. And now, in the 2.0, I'm trying something different. I'm going for a life-stacking percentage heal character. Since I'm using something that positioning is very important, for example, I'm using Cluster Arrow here, where I want to position mobs in a very specific way. This encourages like a form of kiting, essentially. I want to kite things because it makes me deal more damage. You know, if I get things in a line, if I kite them just a little bit, they line up, and I'm able to use my damage more effectively. So, to synergize with that, I stack a lot of life, and then go for percentage heals. What that means is I can take a big hit every now and then, so like one of these guys punches me, that's not a big hit, maybe more like elites and things like that. I can take it. So I can take a hit like that, and you know, as a fraction of my health, I can survive that. I can survive 1, 2, maybe even 3 big hits by stacking life, so using vitality as much as possible in gear. I can get my life a lot higher than it actually is now, but this is kind of just the start of it so far. I need to gear a little bit more specifically for it. But in general, I can take those big hits, and then because I'm kiting anyway, I shouldn't really take any follow-up hits. Unless, of course, I get walled in against a wall like this, because Waller is the worst affix of all time. Oh man, you've got to have one affix every now and then, just punishes you, don't you? Oh man, what a chovo. Okay. Oh, Waller is the worst. Anyway, generally speaking, I'm able to take those hits, especially if I'm playing in zones that are a bit better for my build, like more open zones, and then reposition, and then use things like Smokescreen with a percentage heal to heal myself back up. So once I've taken that damage, I pop this, it heals 15% of my life, and I have time to either pop another one if I need to. It also gets me out of danger because I'm using like the speed boost on Smokescreen, and it, you know, it turns me invisible for a sec so I can get out of there. So it's like just like this really nice synergy between being a life stacking percentage heal character and playing a highly mobile build, compared to if you're playing like a more tanky standstill sort of build, then you go like the mitigation and life gain on hit. And it just like feels really good to have this option and to feel like these builds are actually kind of clicking together rather than just being the same. You just gear the same pretty much whatever build you're playing. And overall, it's made like Reaper of Souls much more. Diablo 3 2.0 much more interesting to play. Reaper of Souls especially because of the addition like Vengeance and things like that. But overall, it's just made Demon Hunter much more fun to play and much more interesting to make builds for. And you know, we're in the start. The patch has kind of just come out. People have been sort of still experimenting with a lot of different builds. Every Demon Hunter I look at is running something different. And it's a good time to sort of just be jumping on, testing out different specs, and you know, seeing what sticks, because there's a lot that you can actually do now, and a lot more viable specs than there once was. So I think the Demon Hunter's in a really good place. For some things, it's still weaker than other classes. Like, to be honest, if you're farming like things like Rifts in Reaper of Souls, where you get a really high density, the Demon Hunter doesn't excel at that. It excels more at the bounty hunting aspects and things like that. But you know, different tools for different jobs. The Demon Hunter excels at some things, while the other classes do better at other things. And that's actually, I think, a good place to be in. Very close to ending up Paragon leveling there, not bad. A little bit under half a Paragon level at the end there. But I'll go over the spec just briefly for those of you guys who want to know a little bit more details about it. Maybe you want to rock a similar build or test some similar things yourself. I was going for the idea of being a Grenadier. I love being a Grenadier, but I didn't want to be a standstill Grenadier. I wanted to be highly mobile. So I'm using grenades with grenade cache for extra, sort of extra AoE against the packs that are a little bit more spread out. And I feel that works pretty well. Otherwise, I was playing around with Tinkerer early to increase my hatred regen, to use my cluster arrows more. So both of those worked pretty well with this spec. And you know, you don't want to use something like gas grenades, because that's more something that's going to stand still is going to take advantage of gas grenades and use that for life gain on hit. Cluster arrows, I use cluster bombs for the reasons I stated. It really benefits you. You get a lot of extra advantage out of cluster arrow if you are kiting, because you're lining up mobs. As you tend to kite, you tend to funnel mobs towards you, as the faster ones get in front of the slower ones, and they end up kind of lining up. It's just the way the mob AI functions, because it's kind of silly. It's kind of, you know, not too intelligent, and just kind of tries to chase you. So that works really well with that. Loaded for bear works pretty well as well, but I think I like cluster bombs the most. I'm using Volt with Tumble just so I can tumble a lot more and save some discipline there, so that I can have discipline to use Smokescreen, healing vapors, because managing your resources has always been very important on the Demon Hunter, and now since discipline is your main source of healing in a build like this, managing that discipline is very important as well, so Tumble is a very nice one to have there. I'm using Fan of Knives with Stun. I didn't actually show this off enough in this little run just here, but essentially what I do is if there's like an elite or something closes the gap with me, and I want to save some of my discipline, instead of using like Smokescreen or vault, I can instead use this. It's a guaranteed stun for 2.5 seconds and knockback. So I essentially knock them back, take a step back, and then burst them down. I can even like use the bat again, burst them down, and kind of finish him off really quickly there while they're stunned. And I can actually usually kill an elite pack in that time, even on like Torment 2 and 3, which is what I've been mostly playing on, just on Torment 1 for now, so I don't get too distracted. Companion Bat Companion, as I mentioned, for boosting up the hatred again, or Companion Wolf if you want to burst down those elites a little bit more quickly. I think those are the two main ones that worked really well with this spec. Tactical Advantage gives you a lot of benefit, move speed, extra agility, and a lot of extra ability to jump around between packs a lot more quickly, and it also helps you get out of the action when you need to use smoke screen, so it works really well. Grenadier is really, really good now. I quite like Grenadier. Increases the damage of grenades by 10%, goes without saying, that's pretty just nice damage increase there. But increases the explosion size of grenades, which helps you just get a little bit more AoE out of your grenades. And sometimes I'll notice that you even kind of get a little bit of crossover on the explosions with those grenades there, and it helps a lot with these grenades just here as well. So pretty nice stuff. And I just use archery for the damage. I'm using a two-handed crossbow at the moment, a slower weapon to get more damage from this. However, I've also used Calamity, and it works pretty well as well, because although you spend your hatred quicker, you also gain it back quicker. So in the end, it works pretty well. I'm just going for the high crits from Manticore at the moment, and the extra crit damage on archery works quite well for that. In terms of gearing, as I said, important things to try and stack as much vitality as possible. Extra mitigation shouldn't be okay, so try and focus on stacking vitality and percent life, and then with any other like spare slots you have, then go for your armor and all resist. But prioritize that vitality and life. Armor and all resist are still helpful. They're still going to give you a lot of extra EHP, effective HP, but the vitality and life percentage are the main ones. So I think I have like some percent life there, percent life on the helmet, and things like that. And I'll try and get more where I can. Otherwise, your normal damage stats are most important, like crit damage and base damage are very important. Attack speed's not so important for this sort of spec, I don't think, though a little bit if you happen to get some will help you just with sort of being a little bit more mobile. And I think that pretty much covers it. Max out that move speed, yo, because I've got 25% move speed and it feels rad. I got 24% from I got the 12% from Natalia's, and where's the other 12% comes from is from Inn's Temperance, that's right. But you can use something like Lacuni's or some of the new legendaries that have it on it as well. In terms of other Paragon passives, I've just gone for critical hit chance, so just balance out whichever is more effective for you. Test both critical hit damage and critical hit chance. Pretty easy to just sort of spec between them and then see your DPS change. So 188, let's actually check for me now. 187, looks like actually crit damage has just sort of moved into being more effective for me, so I'll grab that now. And then in terms of defensive stats, as you'd expect, stacking life percentage is much more effective for this sort of spec. And then in utility, I'm just going for resource cost reduction so I can squeeze in an extra cluster arrow here and there. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this sort of little brief look at the Demon Hunter. I'm sure in the future I'll come up with extra and more refined builds in the future, but this is just what I'm playing around with at the moment, and I've been having a lot of fun on the Demon Hunter, and hopefully you, my little Demon Hunter bros, have a good fun with it anyway as well. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.